So Derek is now ready. Look at all that, Derek. Look at all that.
How's it going, Matt?
We got some good graphics for you and everything. I was just
Yeah.
reading. My gosh, Kevin, I didn't know he's going to
Appreciate
write
it.
like your whole bio up there. Good to have you, sir. How are things treating you in Kansas City? And have you had a peek yet at the that glass LED court that's
Yeah.
everybody's been talking about? Now, y'all got to. Now that I'm thinking about it, y'all
We
had
saw
a
it, yeah.
sneak peek at that, didn't you? When it was in, y'all were in Orlando, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Back in November, before Thanksgiving, we had the chance at they have their headquarters, a big warehouse, and they have a lot of NBA and WNBA and NCAA teams out there. And so we got to practice on it. And the reviews were good. The girls felt like it was easy to move on. They didn't feel like it was. I mean, I think the easy thing to say is it going to feel strange? Well, they didn't think it felt strange. They liked it, and they thought the way the floor could change was cool. So, kind of innovative for the tournament. It's kind of an interesting place to give it a try and see how it goes. And so far, the reviews have been good.
Did you kind of get out there and kind of move your feet around, like get in a defensive position and try to get your own feel for it? I mean, I think I'd like to kind of get you out there shuffling around a little bit and get in a defensive stance. I mean, it does look strange. And I mean, I need to bounce that ball off hardwood. So I don't know, man. I think I would really be freaked out by this. But
walking on it and dribbling on it felt a little different. But I really think if you're like for the players, once they get going,
yeah,
they're probably just in game mode. Like it didn't feel so different that you're like, this is weird. I think, I don't know. You ever, if you play on different surfaces, like sometimes on a regular court, maybe a driveway or a church rec room that's a little different floor, you kind of get used to it, right? So I think the girls, for all teams, will kind of get used to it quickly.
Do you miss that municipal arena or that where the women? You remember? I think there was some asbestos in there. I hope you and I are okay because we spent some time down in that basement for some media stuff and everything. But that was that it had a lot of character.
It did.
But I think Brett Yormark and maybe Bowlesby was already trying to head that way. But I think one of the first things he did was like, we got to get the women at a premium facility like where the men are playing this tournament.
Yeah, I think that was a good move. And there was nothing wrong with Municipal Auditorium. It more than got the job done and a great location. But I think separating the tournaments and giving the women a more premier facility, as you said, has been better. It just feels more big time. And I think the games have a bigger feel there at the T-Mobile Center. And I like that, on one hand, it was nice having the men and women together and you could, go from one to the other. I think it's been good to elevate the women and give them their own kind of time on the stage.
Derek, do you have a Kansas City barbecue? You grew up in Indiana, and so you certainly have loved the Texas barbecue scene, but you also maybe aren't as I don't know if you're as partial to it as some of us who get real territorial as far as like where we're from. I think you're an equal opportunity. When it comes to ribs and brisket and that kind of thing, sausage, whatever. The burn-ins are kind of the delicacy of Kansas City. Have you had a place that's emerged? And you're a guy that likes new experiences, so I bet you always are trying to maybe work a new one in, but where's the place you always find yourself going back to there in Kansas City?
Honestly, Gates is my favorite in Kansas City. I like Gates. I think their ribs are the best. So their burnt ends are good here, Matt. But to your point about Texas barbecue, I would take good Texas brisket or a good Texas beef rib over a good Kansas City burnt end. Now, the burnt ends are really good, but I do prefer Texas. That said, I really do enjoy Gates. I think their ribs, their pork ribs, are fantastic. And so that's one I want to get before we go.
All right, the women's matchup tonight, 8:00 start. What do you what is this matchup like for Baylor in your mind? Take us back to earlier this season, these teams, and just how's the mindset for this team coming in? I mean, obviously, a real downer what happened in Fort Worth. And part of me is like, yeah, you want another crack at TCU. Part of me is like, man, somebody else please knock them off. Like, I don't, hopefully they'll beat them someday. I would be fine somebody else beating them in this tournament. But what about tonight? Because tonight's that key. What you can't do is be thinking about.
Oh yeah,
You saw it at K-State. Who'd they knock off? I mean, there's
Oklahoma State just
that's
now.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tech. We saw. Yeah, we've seen.
Yeah.
We've already seen some upsets. Where do you think this team is mindset wise right now?
I think mindset is good. I think obviously what happened last Sunday in Fort Worth was disappointing. The team didn't play its best offense. I think the defense was good enough to win that game on the whole, but the offense, they just didn't generate enough of it. And so that was very disappointing. And you could, I think, see the hurt from the girls afterwards. That was a goal they had. That said, they've been able to turn the page. They've been able to get a little rest. I think the schedule allowed, an off day, and so they could rest, kind of reset their minds and refocus on what's ahead. And, I think they would love another shot at TCU. I mean, the games have been close enough. I think they'd love another shot, but you're right. You can't think about that. You got to focus on what's ahead because the Big 12 is too good and there's too much parity. And I think Colorado was a great example of that. Back in Waco on January 8th, Baylor knocked off Colorado 56 to 52. And I mean, it was a dogfight until the end. I mean, there was a really low scoring second quarter, but what Colorado does and what they've done all year, they're very physical. They have a lot of length. They're a good rebounding team. They're tall. They really clog the lane and they just don't let you get a lot inside. So you have to be tough. You have to when there's an open shot or an opportunity to make that pass inside, you've really got to be ready because they really make when they're on the defensive end, they really make you work offensively. So I think for the Bears today, you got to be ready to be physical. You got to have a little added toughness in the game, and you did in Waco. And I think you want to really perform better offensively than you did in Waco. That was a game that saw a 7-5 second quarter. Baylor outscored Colorado 7-5 in that quarter. I mean, it was just a mucking defensive game, right? So you want to really, you really want to be a little better on offense and be ready to kind of execute what they've practiced because I think Baylor's the better team. I don't have any doubt of that, but Colorado is more than good enough. They beat TCU this year. They have a number of marquee wins on their schedule so far.
Is that where Nettie came from? I was just sitting here trying. Okay.
Yeah. And they actually just extended their head coach. So, I mean, they feel good about where they're headed. They feel good about where they are, J.R. Payne. So I feel like they're one of those teams that probably doesn't get enough respect. I feel like if they were a Big Ten, ACC, SEC school, they would probably get a little more notice. But they have impressive wins, and they've got some really talented players. And they've got they have an identity with the size and with their rebounding.
Isn't it amazing how many good coaches have been hired? And even at Kellogg, at West Virginia, man, I think he can flat out coach. Molly comes in Arizona State. And we just kind of started to hear about her even when Mac was right before Mac hired Nikki. Molly's name was coming up a lot. And now she's at Arizona State. It's just interesting that this all happened within the span, Derek, since you've been doing this in the last, 4 years. There's been this influx of and Finley and some of these guys that have been around are still around, and Gerlich's been there for a while. But it's kind of remarkable, isn't it, how many good coaches, have come into this thing.
There is. I mean, and you look like, and when you look at the top of the Big 12 conference this year, you've got TCU, West Virginia, Baylor, all within a game of each other. You've got Oklahoma State, the 4 seed. I mean, that's 4 coaches who have been hired, like to your point, in the last 5 years. It's fun. It's competitive. There's everybody's kind of jockeying for the same pieces of real estate. And I think you see that this weekend here in Kansas City, certainly. But also I think that, I hope that, what you just mentioned, that, people around the nation noticed. I think the Big 12 probably doesn't get quite enough respect. And I think, you can look and there's different metrics you can go by, but the Big 12 has a lot of good teams and a lot of parity. And as such, the records kind of demonstrate that because everybody kind of beats each other up a little bit at the top of the Big 12. We've seen that.
It'd be nice if Bella could tap into that game a couple of games ago where she had 16. We've seen her be a good scorer. She's gone through some really lows this year in terms of not being in a good shooting rhythm. It's just Baylor performs best, it seems like in the past, when they have a true low post scorer. Now, they haven't always had that in recent years, but they function pretty well with that. And Eddie, it was kind of nice to have somebody down there that could score. That's just been tough, hasn't it? It's just so much pressure on Talia, and Coach mentioned it. It's like and she's willing to do it. But there's just something about somebody when you kind of need 20 to 24 points a game to have your best shot to win a game from somebody, that kind of puts some pressure on them. And again, she's not against it, but it would be nice if they didn't have that kind of pressure on her.
Well, and she's been such a great pickup for the Bears this year, 20.5 points per game. I mean, game-winning shot against Iowa State and a lot of big games. I think to your point, you mentioned, Bella in that Kansas State game. I think as I think about the month of March here and what's ahead for this team, you've got a couple things. One, I trust the defense. I think the defense this year makes you feel like in most games they're going to have you in position to win, whether it's the third best perimeter defense, 3-point shooting wise in the nation, one of the top shot blocking teams in the nation, top 15 in field goal defense. All the numbers say this is a defense that I really feel good about going into March. The question is can they get enough offense? And to your point, I think you kind of generally, granted, Talia Scott struggled in the first 3 quarters against TCU, and that made a difference in the game. But I think you can generally feel like you're going to get around 20 from Talia Scott. Bugs is a double-double machine or close to it. But where is that other option? Is it Jana Van Geitenbeek knocking down threes? Does she get open looks? Markayla Johnson is averaging double figures her last 3 games and maybe seems to have turned a little bit of a corner. But Bella's that one that if she's knocking down shots, it changes what teams have to do against the Bears because it changes the geometry on the floor. You have to account for her, and that makes it easier for Talia. When there's not that third option, you see teams really stick like glue to Talia more. And I think to your point about Bella, that's really the question. Who is going to be, can you get that reliable third scorer? And it doesn't have to be the same person every game, but after Talia and Bugs, who's going to step up? Because I think that could be the difference, in where the season comes to its conclusion. And if you're getting a good performance from Bella and from Markayla Johnson, along with what Talia and Bugs do, I think that, all of a sudden the trajectory really could go a lot further than people think.
Markayla was good against TCU, and yeah, you're right. It's pretty cool that she, I guess it was that third quarter or whatever, just kind of got the whatever fear out of her system and played a lot better. The other thing is they just can't turn the ball over so much. It's got to be just maddening. And maybe I need to look and see if the women's game, for whatever reason, has way more turnovers. Sometimes I feel like it does. I don't know if a study would reveal that, but this year there have been too many times you look up and there's somewhere in like 18 to 25 turnovers. And that has
been something the Bears need to clean. Yeah. And that's something Colorado does well tonight, Matt. That's been a focus. Colorado is good at stripping the basketball. So that ball security is really going to be key tonight for the Bears and certainly going forward.
All right. I wanted to ask you a little bit about Baylor baseball. 1-5 in these 2 tournaments or showcases, whatever we call those, invitationals. And there were moments where it's like, hey, these guys may be pretty good. And so I guess there were enough of those moments to make you feel, but the fact is, you just can't keep going on that, right? Season after season, you can't go, well, we're getting close or we're closer. You've got to connect on some of those. And then to lose at Tarleton State, how discouraged did they seem after that recent loss? And like, what can you tell us about like what you've seen that you could build on, like from a positive standpoint? Have you seen enough to make you think that, hey, maybe they could get on a little bit of run once they get to conference?
And I have what we've seen inconsistency, and unfortunately, that inconsistency has led to not winning as many games as you'd like so far. 6-6 through 12 games. I mean, the Tarleton State game. I know there's been some. There's been some discussions afterwards about how they need to improve on that, and I think. You look at that Purdue game, Baylor had a 5-0 lead and couldn't close it in Round Rock a couple weeks ago, and all of a sudden you are 10-4. You're 8-4 instead of 6-6. But the challenge is obviously you've got to learn how to close. And I would say what probably gives me hope, Matt, is this team is very, very young. We right now over 34% of the team's at bats have been by either true freshmen or redshirt freshmen, and nearly half the at-bats have come by players with very little experience at the D1 level. The talent is there, but the consistency has not been yet. And I think that's going to be the big question is, Baylor plays Air Force this weekend, and then, next week plays a top 25 West Virginia team at the ballpark, Magnolia Field of Baylor Ballpark, to open Big 12, because I think you see the flashes, but can they put it together consistently? And I think a big part of that has got to be cutting down on the strikeouts. There's been the coaching staff's talked about it. I mean, all you have to do is look at the numbers. Too many strikeouts from key players. You got to cut that down and put the ball in play, because Baylor has more speed than it's had in the past. I think it's got some gap power. It's got some things that can play if you can get guys on base. But when you strike out, you're not getting guys on base. And so for the Bears, cutting down on the strikeouts is going to be a big thing, because they have faced two excellent pitchers against Oregon State and Ole Miss. But, that's not an excuse. You can't strike out as much as they have. And I think that could be the difference between this team moving towards where they want to be as we get into March and growing versus, kind of chasing losses that could have been wins.
Has Tom Barfield kept a good attitude? I mean, I just want to make sure his spirits are still where they need to be.
Well, Tom is he's excited. I know he's excited for the weekend ahead. Tom can pick apart a baseball game. I tell you, he can. This won't surprise you. He'll go through all the little details, and you can get discouraged, but you can usually work your way back around to something to something positive. I think part of his discouragement on Tuesday was that my work schedule didn't allow us to go to Jake and Dorothy's in Stephenville before the game, so I owe him on that.
I'm just trying to see the thinner version of him, if that's made him more optimistic or made him. I'm trying to think what it's done to his personality. I'd like to find out, by the way. I'd like to be thin enough to find out if my personality would change. I'd like to give it a go.
Well, he's actually motivating me a little bit. I've had like 15 to 20 pounds I've said I'm going to lose for 4 years. And here's Tom every time I see him after a couple of weeks looking thinner. So I gotta follow his lead, a little bit.
And by the way, Kevin Hall's doing some PA work this weekend. With you being out of town, it's kind of, I think Cole Posey's going to be coming over to work with Tom. And Kevin is a fellow, he's from Indiana.
Yeah.
He's a Hoosier. And so he was very excited when I told him you were coming on today. So I've had him really working on that pronunciation guide. Is there any name in this lineup that the kid, the freshman Janusek,
Janusek.
Janusek or Janusek?
Okay. Janusek. It's not a hard U. It's just kind of Janusek.
Okay.
Yeah, you got Janusek. You've got, I think most of what the team has out there is good. Here's what Kevin will appreciate. So allow us to nerd out, Matt, over Kevin and I being from Indiana and Colts fans. The left fielder, Hunter Snow, is the son of Justin Snow, the Colts' longtime long snapper. And I actually asked him, Kevin, if he was named after Hunter Smith, the punter, and Matt's right. And Justin's special teams. He wasn't sure, but he's like, well, we hang out with the Smiths a lot. So there you go, Kevin. Hunter Snow, your Carmel, Indiana, and Colts tie, and Baylor tie, because his dad was also a great football player at Baylor.
Mosley actually brought up Snow the other day as the long snapper for the Colts. So
I don't know if I knew, though, that's good information from Derek. And then Baylor is really good at producing these deep snappers. If you think about that, John Weeks for the Texans has been there a long time
with the Jaguars, and
yes,
yeah,
that's another Matt. I don't think I ever knew how to say his name. What'd you say, Ross? What?
Matisic.
Okay.
Matisic, yeah, that's one we had to say on the PA right. So I know. I had to go up and down.
He's been gone for 10 years or so. And I'm just learning how to say it. But
He's still doing his thing though, right? Him and John Weeks, like you
Amazing.
said, they're still going strong.
Oh man, the life of a specialist. Okay, you've got to get on, and y'all going to go over there and do some shoot around stuff, and hopefully you get something to eat. Thank you for taking the time. We'll be listening to you and Lori, and have a great time. And Derek, I mean, feel free. Rogue. If you haven't noticed, it seems like everybody's kind of heading this direction. So if we can. We'd like to recruit you over here, okay? So
well, it was good to jump on with Tom earlier this week and JMO. It's a lot of great voices. I'm happy for both of them to have that spot on the Central Texas airwaves again with you as well. So it's exciting.
All right. Well, good to have you on, and have a great call, and then we'll keep you posted on what's happening with Air Force and Baylor. Okay? It concerned me when I started looking at their games, and they're not that great in terms of win-loss. But they put up a bunch of runs. That concerns me, So
and they've played a lot, kind of like Baylor. They've lost some games, but they played close games against good teams. So who can close? That's going to be the big question this weekend.
That is the question. Derek Smith, thank you, sir.
Thank you.